Welcome to Hoops and Headsets. We are back for episode 9, a little under 2 weeks away. Well, when this one goes live, it's a little under 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks as we record it, but the World Cup is here at last. Once again, joined by Shona. We're going to do 4 episodes over the next few days where we jump into each of the groups, give you our thoughts, and maybe some predictions if we're brave enough. Shona, Group A first. An interesting one. Definitely not one that's kind of decided. Clearly, the headline goes to the hosts, Germany. A huge moment. They haven't qualified for a World Cup since '98. My question for you is, how much pressure does being the hosts put on Germany?
I do think it puts a lot of pressure. Obviously, it's a huge investment from the Federation, the German Basketball Federation as well. And not that I think they're doing it on purpose, but the players are going to feel the pressure. My biggest question is, will the pressure outweigh the positives? Because there's also just as many positives as pressure that's going to be had when you get to host a major tournament like this. And I would like to think, the German Federation, the investment that they have made in women's basketball, men's basketball as well in the last, let's say 10 years, last decade, has been enormous. And it's paid off a lot, especially on the men's side. Can that same kind of investment pay off from the women's side? And, I do think that they have a team ready to do it. These federations, these top federations, and I consider the way that Germany is going as one of those top federations, they have mental coaches with them. I bet you they're there in training camp with them as well, and they're going to be there during the competition. A lot of players now have their own, mental preparation coaches, and you use those types of people when you're heading into a tournament like this. And I'm sure there are going to be some discussions and, ways to handle the pressure of hosting a FIBA Basketball World Cup. And I hope, and I really do actually think that the advantages are going to outweigh the pressure. And by advantages, I mean, listen, their training camp is only in Germany. They're not traveling anywhere. Their exhibition games have been in Germany. They've been in Germany since, early August. And, they have a lot of players. They've brought in everyone, their younger generation players. And, you're comfortable. You're at home. You get to play a World Cup in front of friends and family. There are not many athletes in the world in any sport, especially basketball, that can say they had an opportunity to do that during their career. And I really, that's a positive to me. And I hope that positive is going to outweigh the pressure that they might be feeling.
Yes, it is an interesting one because, like you say, it is kind of double-sided. I think most of the negativity is actually before the tournament. It's the anticipation, it's the build-up. Basketball players are good at playing basketball, right? It's the bits that build up to that. Once they get into the first game, and like you say, they have a packed-out Uber Arena or whatever we're calling it, Berlin Arena, if we're being nice and commercially right for this. Once they have that, I think it just hits a different level of positivity. I think all the negativity disappears. It's just how they deal with that build-up, the anticipation. There'll be loads of media, right? There'll be lots of TV interviews, all of that stuff that maybe German women's basketball hasn't had that level of attention before because they haven't had that investment and they haven't been to a World Cup since the late 90s. So it's how they deal with that. And like you say, I'm sure they've understood what those requirements will be mentally for the players, and hopefully they're dealing with them in the right way, that they are giving them enough rest time and they're not overloading them with all these other responsibilities, because the other responsibilities are important, because hosting the World Cup for Germany isn't just about a chance for those 12 players. It's about building that, planting that seed and building that inspiration for the next generations to come through and hopefully kind of ignite German basketball, because it is, to a certain degree, kind of a sleeping giant when you look on the domestic side of things. They don't really hit at the top table just yet. And maybe this World Cup will see investors or people take it a bit more seriously and put more funding into it and drive the kind of talent pathway as well. But I think once the tournament starts, the negatives are gone. I really believe that. That said, if they have some dodgy results or a terrible first performance, maybe that flips pretty quickly and they start to feel that pressure.
Yeah, you kind of nailed it on the head for me. It's the buildup. And then when the tournament starts, it kind of goes quiet. Yeah, you'll have the interviews, but you don't have the interviews as much. You don't have the appearances that I'm sure they're doing right now in the cities that they're training in and the exhibition games. That all dies down. And I mean, there's a lot of athletes who head into World Cups to Olympics. They shut off social media.
Yeah.
And you said, if they get a couple bad losses, maybe it's not a bad idea to, shut down, don't read your social media and just let the game play. I think the biggest thing for me, and I'm sure you saw it, and we've all seen it if you're following, the World Cup, who's going to be playing, the Sabley sisters. They're
That's a
both
killer,
injured right
That's
now.
awful.
And, obviously you're reading the press releases, following on social media. So you and I have seen the same thing. They haven't said that they're not participating. I don't think it looks good though. So,
I
that
think from
to me
Satu's
is
perspective, I can't see it, right? Satu is a different category. This concussion is long term and it is a life situation, right? Concussion isn't just about basketball anymore. This is actually what damage are you doing to yourself for post-basketball life, okay? We're seeing it, obviously in the UK with rugby and stuff like that, we're seeing an awful lot of that. So a lot more, understandably precious and careful with that situation. I think Niara might be potentially more likely, but is it going to be like we saw in Lyon? Very limited minutes. They were really cagey with her and holding her back, playing 10 minutes, maybe 12 minutes, 15. And is that going to be enough for them to get the job done, leading them into the latter stages? I think Satu, I can't see how she's going to play. I understand why she'd want to. I understand, who she is as an individual, wants to wear the German jersey, wants to be the leader in that team and take the spotlight, but I can't see how she can. Niara, I think potentially, because they are being a little cagey around that injury update, right? It's kind of every now and then I see day to day, and then I see we're going to reassess it in a week or two, and I'm like, the pressure will be there for her to perform. She turned up in Lyon for the qualification tournament, which was a warm-up tournament because obviously Germany had qualified. But I agree with you. If both Sabley sisters are not there, this becomes a very different tournament for Germany, and they instantly become, potential underdogs in that group, or scrabbling to get out of the group, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the one advantage Germany has is they do have bigs. A lot of teams you lose two kind of, all right, a small forward and a center. They're scrambling to find another big to replace. But, they have a Geiselschroeder, they have a Gudic who is back, and she looked like, I got to see some highlights in that exhibition game against Spain a few days ago, and she looks good. She's moving good. She's back. She was one of my favorite players. I remember, we tried to recruit her at Basketland a few years ago, and and then she actually was going to come, ended up tearing her ACL last year in the preparations from the Eurobasket. So it's been a good year, and more than a year, but she looks good. She looks ready to go. And it'll be really interesting, though, without the Sabley sisters, if they're not available, either or both of them. It does. I think we talked about it before. I said I could see Germany making the podium. Without them, I'm questioning if they're podium caliber team.
Yeah, it certainly becomes a far harder prospect. I think the thing I have without the Sabley sisters, they've still got a ton of quality, but someone in that team, one or two players, is truly going to have to step up and go, give me the ball. I'm going to be the focal point. When things aren't going our way, put the ball in my hands. Now, I'd want it to be Leonie Fibisch, right? She would be your go-to, that Fibisch would be but I'm not sure she's that kind of personality that wants to be the spotlight, the center of attention, the kind of the hub to that wheel. I think she's quite happily being one of a group of superstars in a team. If she can step up and go, do you know what? I'm taking it on my shoulders. Niara and Satu are out. I got this. Give me the ball. I'll lead us. Then I'm more confident in them. Otherwise, I just felt at times in their games in Lyon, they just lost a lot of it, a direction at times. They didn't have if we get a bit stagnant, this is our go-to. Autopilot, we run whatever it is, a handoff or just to clear out, whatever it is, something super simple and basic. They didn't seem to have that, and they kind of got a little bit stuck. So that's my worry, that they're not going to have someone that steps up and goes, right, get out of the way, I'm taking this on now.
Right. I mean, they have a good training camp period heading into this. Don't forget, March, the qualifications. I mean, Coach Olaf had not necessarily just been hired on, but very recently hadn't had a lot of time with them heading into that tournament. So, obviously Coach Olaf Lang's not with them right now, but I do know that he has been working closely with his assistant coaches, and they've been working for a few months about what systems they're running, what they want to do defensively. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how Germany handles a lot, the pressure, possible absence. I think the saddest thing also for Satu Sabley, I mean, you talked about it. Health is so much more important than basketball.
100%.
But she's from Berlin. Like, this was so important for her, this was her coming home moment, and
kind of written in the stars, right?
You really, really. So, hopefully she'll be there if she can, obviously health-wise, even just to support and experience that moment as well with her teammates, her country.
Yeah, I think game one's going to be really important, with the Sableys there or without them there, and game one is Spain. But that's the World Cup, right? Because it's a relatively small field. It's not like the Football World Cup where, we've had it this summer where pretty much every country that ever was created now qualifies for the World Cup. It's so condensed. It literally is only world-class teams that are there, world-class players that get to play. So there's no warming yourself in. There's no, we've got an easy group stage and we'll build into this tournament. It's like, no, game one, Spain. What? Okay. We'll play Spain in game one. But that's the way it goes. So not necessarily result for me on game one, but performance is going to be key. Can they take confidence out of that will be vital.
Yeah.
Okay. Second team I want to jump into, very different prospect, completely different, kind of other end of the spectrum. That is Mali. 18th ranked in the world, the second lowest ranked team in the whole World Cup. Only Hungary sit below them in the world rankings. Clearly, natural reaction of fans and everyone will be looking at this that aren't from Mali or aren't from Africa as a wider region, potentially will be writing Mali off before they've even got going. How do you think that impacts Mali? How do you think the fact that they know everyone that's not on their side, all impartial and neutrals, be looking at them going, it's lovely that you're here, but you're not going to be here very long. How does that change your psyche as a player or as a team, do you think?
I hope it motivates them. They have nothing to lose heading into this tournament. And I hope they play like that. We look at Mali. They were there 4 years ago. They were in Sydney. This is it's not their first rodeo. They're going to have, they have a big list. We don't know who's on the team yet, but they're going to have players who were there 4 years ago. They have players who, have been on the podium at Afrobasket. And I don't know if you've ever watched or if you've ever called the Afrobasket. I mean, that's a tough tournament. Those African teams play differently than the European, than the Americas, than the Asias. And I think they're scary to go up against. And, Mali, what a great opportunity and what an advantage going in as the underdogs, because you kind of said it quickly, athletes do it, coaches do it, federations do it. You look at your group and you say, who is that team we have to get a win over? Okay, it's Mali. And then, mentally you say, well, yeah, it's Mali. We're better than them. So maybe they go in a little bit differently, a little bit less focused, just, not on purpose, but just something that unfortunately happens automatically. And that's when, Mali, I've seen them play. If they could put together a more consistent 40-minute game.
Yeah. They're scary. That's the key. I was looking at, like you say, very long lists for some teams at the moment with the guys. They're almost naming everyone that's possibly eligible to play.
Right.
But you look at that list and there are some absolute ballers, Kone, Ndai, Dembele. These are players that have played multiple Afrobaskets, won multiple medals. They have played at the highest level against the best teams in the world, time after time after time. I don't think you can just be blasé. I don't think any of these teams, Germany or Spain or Japan, can walk into that game going, yeah, it's fine. That's our gimme win. We can rest players. I don't think you can. I think if I'm Germany, Spain and Japan, I want to get the job done early. I want to try and break Mali early in the game. I want to be up 20, 25 points at the half, because then I can think about, can I take my foot off the gas, get some rest into some players and stuff like that. But you cannot afford to start that game slowly, because if Mali get a bit of confidence, get a bit of wind in the sails, then that becomes a fourth quarter nightmare for any of these teams to play, because, the likes of Mali with confidence and a close game heading into the fourth, that's a lottery. That's the flip of a coin who comes out with a win in that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think it's a scary team. And you mentioned it. There's players on that team who have experience at Afrobasket, but they also have experience playing in Europe. Long time experience playing in Europe professionally. So, these aren't, it's not what I imagine the team is going to look like. It's not a group of women who don't know how to win basketball games. They know how to win basketball
100%.
games. They're athletic. They're going to be physical, maybe a little out of control, and that can frustrate other teams and, the way that they want to play. So I would never count off any team. Like you said, this is only a 16-team tournament. It's small. Like the best of the best from around the world are playing in this tournament. So anyone can win on any given night.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And, you're obviously saying, so for me, kind of the personal experience, I've commentated on Sika Kone quite a few times. I don't know any big on any of the other teams in this group that will be happy to go up against her. It's not like, this is going to be a fun night. I'm going to, get my 20 and 10 all day long. That's not an easy matchup. That's not a fun one. And you're also going to know you've been in a game at the end of it. You're not going to leave the gym without knowing that you've been made to work hard, both physically and kind of from a stamina perspective. So I expect Mali to push some of these teams. Will they get the wins? I don't know. If I'm Mali, within that, just get me into the game. Just buy me a ticket to that lottery in the fourth quarter. That's what I'd be saying to my team. Just keep us within single digits heading into the fourth, and then let's see what we can do. That's kind of the first task. Clearly, as I said, they'll be seen as outsiders. One of the lower ranks in the world rankings. This is a tough group. They all are pretty tough. Can you see Mali getting out of this? And kind of, what's the biggest game for them in those three games in the group? Which one do they have to kind of really hone in on and try and take the win?
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to say Japan, just because I think Mali might have an advantage on the inside, in the interior of the post play, because of a player like Sika Kone, like you mentioned. They're going to have, they're going to have the length. They're going to have the athleticism, different kind of athleticism, because Japan's athletic. Don't get me wrong. They are
scary,
quick. Yeah. But different kind of, Mali's going to have a different kind of athleticism. And, I think if they have a chance, again, I mean, who's playing for Germany? We don't know. Who's going to make that final roster of Spain? We're not sure either.
Yeah.
So it's so hard to say right now. But I do think, if they need to focus in on any team. But that being said, I mean, Japan have been training since April for this World Cup. They were out in the US training and having exhibition games against WNBA teams during their preseason.
Yeah.
So, a team that has invested and wants to prove that they're, they can have the success that we saw them have back at the Tokyo Olympics is definitely Japan. So it's so hard. Like, I don't know. Who would you say they should, maybe focus in on?
It's interesting. If the Sabley sisters were there, I'd say Germany wouldn't be the focal point. I'd say it would be the Japan game. But if Sabley sisters aren't there, could they do something against Germany? Japan is their opening game. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the opening game of the whole tournament. Yeah, it is the opening game of the whole tournament.
Right.
So it's 11:30 in the morning.
Right,
Tip-off kind of game. So who knows? That might play into their hands a little bit. It's an awkward time. No player wants to be playing that first game. Most players aren't out of bed at that point in the day, so they don't want to be playing that first game. So that could be the one that they target. I think the nice thing they've got is, if not, then they have got Germany in that last game. They have got a chance to go. My personal opinion is I think Spain will probably be too much for them, too deep, too much. So I think it will be one of those two. But I still, and again, sorry to the Mali fans, but I don't see them making out of this group. I think, for me, big performances, if they can grab a win, amazing. but showing that they belong and that they are in these games, all three of them in the group stage, would be really impressive and a good step forward. They finished 11th in 2022 in Australia, so who knows? Let's see what they can do this year. So mention them briefly just then. I said they were too strong. Nice simple question about Spain. Are they the real deal this year?
You know, I would never count out Spain. I had no idea that they were going to make a run that they did at last year's Eurobasket.
Didn't call it at all. Not at all.
They should have won that. They should have had gold.
Oh, don't.
But so
I can still see everyone's face in that arena. I can literally, I'm looking around at everyone going, are you seeing what? I'm not like hallucinating. That just happened, right? Even the Belgian players couldn't believe. I
was going to say, Messiman, her reaction was the best. Like a woman who's played how many thousands of basketball games just realized she witnessed something incredible. So I think Spain, you can never count them out. I do. Obviously, we know after the Paris Olympics, they had a big changeover. And I thought it was going to take them a little bit longer to get back on that stage where we have seen Spain so many times, podium ready teams. So, heading into this, if I had not seen the Eurobasket from last year, I would have said, I think Spain, it's still a transition period. Some players who, didn't make the team before or didn't get a lot of playing time, they still need a little bit more experience. But I think Coach Mendez and the Federation have done a great job. The young players have come in and they're ready to take that next step. And we witnessed it last summer. I think we've witnessed it with the growth of, some of the players in EuroLeague women as well. They know their time has come, mid-late 20s now, and maybe it's a little bit longer than some other federations cycle in new players. But I think Coach Mendez, I think the Spanish Federation have done a great job and they're on board. And if there's anything, Spanish players know how to win. They know there is something in their DNA. They know how to win. They know how to win tight games. They play with passion, more passion than most teams, countries I've ever seen. And I think Spain has the ability to go far in this tournament. I really do.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So one of the kind of side questions I put down here was about that Eurobasket and also the fact they weren't at the World Cup in Australia. So they didn't qualify for that. Clearly, a window for a pro player is pretty small, right? Particularly your peak window. When you're too young or you're getting a bit old and the legs are getting a bit heavier, there's a window. Missing a World Cup, missing out on that chance of a Eurobasket burns a bit of your window. Does that fuel some of those players, particularly the ones that are getting to the late 20s, the early 30s, where they're looking at this going, I might not make the roster in 2030 in Japan. This might be my last World Cup. This might be Does that fuel them? They missed it last time. The bitterness of Athens last summer. Is that something that will drive some of these players on and really push them to levels that maybe they wouldn't have done otherwise?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, if there's something that the Spanish do so well is they find fuel and they play well with it. And we saw it back in, 2011, where they had a very, very bad Eurobasket and they didn't play at the 2012 Olympics. And boy, 2013 rolled around and those women were motivated ready, right? And then it exploded. It was like medal every year after that. And, consistently a good level. And, you said it, like some of these athletes, some of these players are coming in a little bit later, but you say a little bit later and you talk about a basketball player's prime, a women's basketball player's prime. I think it is their late 20s and early 30s.
Yeah, I think so.
And a lot of these players are at that age, and they still have some great young talent as well in
they got some scary talent coming through, right?
So I like what Spain has right now. I really do.
obviously we only get to look from the outside. We're like every other fan. We're not kind of peeping behind the door. But you look at their socials and you look at their prep, and it seems legit. It seems they are laser locked in. Everything they're posting is like a pro club. It's not like a national team trying to bring things together and make it happen. They are absolutely fully in their prep. It seems a different level to some of the other nations. Seeing other nations kind of jump about and do a little camp here and go play a couple of games there. It almost feels like they found a base and they're spending far more time on the court together, actually playing basketball rather than traveling or in hotel rooms. And it feels they're far more focused in on preparation rather than the other bits that kind of goes around preparation that every national kind of governing body, every national federation does. And that's impressed me. From Spain's perspective, we talked about the expectation is no matter what for Spanish women's basketball, all levels, doing the juniors for Eurobasket women's, they are expecting to at least be in the final, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the Spanish mindset. If they don't make the final, or is there a level where they'll be not happy, because they won't be happy unless they win it all, clearly, but you know what I mean, where they won't be devastated and disappointed like they were in 2011 or missing out? What is their level of, okay, that's okay, we could have done better, but that's okay? Where do you think that level is for them this year?
Realistically speaking, I think it's a top 5, maybe even a top 4 finish. I think they expect themselves to be in a medal game. And, just quickly, sorry, kind of going back as well, also an advantage that the Spanish team have, if I'm not wrong, other than Agua Fem, their entire team, and Raquel Carrera, their entire team is together.
Yep.
And those two bigs,
ages. Yeah.
Exactly. And those two bigs have played with their national team for a few years now. Like they know what Coach Mendez, their teammates know them. Them arriving late, it's not going to be an issue. And
it's easier, right, to integrate 2 players than try and bring 9 players that have just dropped in.
Exactly.
Right? 2 players is kind of like, you have to fall in line with us. We don't have to move things around for you.
And that's going to be an advantage for Spain, compared to some of these other teams who we'll talk about later, but, are going to have to handle and deal with that issue. So I think Spain, top 4, top 5 finish. I think anything less than that, they would be disappointed. And I'm sure for the majority of them, they're saying if they're not in the final, it's going to be a disappointment. I've seen Spanish teams cry after they've lost to the U.S. when you were like, well, you knew. No, they didn't. They believe that they're going to win every game they play when they have Spain across.
You've got to be that way. You don't win nothing if you're not that way. Yeah, no, I'm with you though. Yeah. I think top 4 they'll be happy. Do I think they'll make top 4? Borderline. Again, it's why I think I said it in the last one we did. Give me that first game. Who have they got first game? Germany. Yeah, see how they play. See what 12 they bring. How they play together, and you kind of get a read pretty early. But I think they could make top 4. I think there's a few curveballs in the way. There's a few Asia teams that are problematic for them, maybe in the way that they play. But I think I'm on board with you with that one. Okay, to wrap out Group A, we have Japan. For many, everyone's kind of second favorite team outside of your own country just because of the way they play. Such an enjoyable, high energy, quick style of basketball. Question I have for you is, you talked about it before, Japan trying to move up the kind of rankings into the top tables. Are Japan medal contenders this year?
I don't think so. I just don't think they have, it's just that lack of the inside game that they've been missing for a long time. It's not anything new. The way that they play, especially offensively, I'm not super worried about it. But on the defensive end, they're good. They come and trap. They rotate excellently. But I think, a 40-minute game, playing at that kind of level, what you need to do defensively, because you are missing that inside presence, it's just too much to make up for right now. I do think they've had one of the longest training camps, so they will be prepared. Coach Gaines, has come in the last couple of years. He's done a good job with them. Going back, they're kind of playing, still playing that style that Tom from the Tokyo Olympics, put into place, and no one wants to play against. So again, they just rely so much on their outside shooting that if it's not a good day, and sometimes it's not a good day, where else are they going to store? They've done a good job. They have players now who can really get to the basket, but if that gets taken away, I don't think they're there yet. I think they've done an excellent job. Every time Japan has success, I love it because, like you said, they're kind of, if you like basketball, they're just such a fun team to watch. Yeah.
I'm obviously over there doing my own thing, so I get to cherry pick my games, and I'm going to try and get to quite a few Japan games because they're just fun to watch, right? They play with a joy for the game, and they play with energy, and they don't get caught up in a lot of the BS that other teams get caught up. There's no attitude, none of that. It's just like, no, it's possession, and on they go. So, yeah, super enjoyable, particularly Yamamoto. Cannot wait to see her light things up because the way she's developing is scary. She is
WNBA
phenomenal.
now. Kokoro, who just got drafted this year, the young 19, Tanaka Kokoro, the 19-year-old. Yep. They're really exciting. They have some, amazing players. I don't think they're podium caliber just yet. Their best players are still young. Yeah. And, their older players are getting older now. Let's be honest. They've been around for a long time. They're captains. And so it'll be really interesting. I think they'll be prepared. I also got to cover them and was calling their games at the World Cup qualifiers. And I mean, they were 2 feet outside. You didn't know if they were going to qualify. And, every single game that they lost their first 3 games. I remember every single game they were up for the majority of the game. More than 20 minutes, they held the lead.
That's the biggest worry,
and
right?
They lost.
That's the worry to see a team do that.
Exactly. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I love Japan. I'm going to root for them because, like you said, they're just so fun to watch and respectful, and the way they play the game, it's enjoyable. But podium caliber, not for me.
Yeah, no, I think I'm with you. I think if they can get to a quarterfinal, and then you're in one and done games, right? And all it takes is for someone to just hit that streak of just dropping threes from all over the floor, and it can be anyone's game. Looking at this group, I think, we talked about it from Mali's perspective. I think Japan will target that Mali game, right? Top 3 teams get out of the group. You want to finish as high as you can to give yourself a better opportunity. Obviously, top of the group goes straight through. Second and third play the opposites in the next group. But I think, Japan will look at that and go, Game 1, Mali get the win, and they put themselves in a relatively comfortable position that they should qualify. But I can't. Yeah, if they could get to a quarterfinal, I think that's a good achievement. But I agree with you. How do you answer that question? You're going up against teams that will all have 3 or 4 players, 6'2", 6'3", whatever that is in metric. 194. Sorry, I've lost my metric. I should put my FIBA hat back on. How do you compete with that? Yeah. There's a point where it's 40 minutes of relentless pressure in the paint. You can only do so much. You can only rotate and help so hard and give up so many fouls before it becomes, kind of critical. So I don't know how they solve that problem, but I'm not going to lie. I'm looking forward to seeing them play. I think they'll win some games. And I think they maybe get through to the quarterfinal, but I don't think they go further than that.
Yeah, I agree.
So looking at this group, just to wrap up, what order do you have them in? How do you see this playing out? Who's top, who's second, who's third, who's fourth?
Before the information about the Sabley sisters came out, I had Germany winning. I had, Germany taking advantage of that home court, playing in front of your friends and family. And I really thought now, I think it's going to be Spain. They know how to win, and never bet against Spain. Never bet against Spain.
It's a good mantra.
Yeah, it is. On the men's side, on the women's side, never bet against Spain. So I think it's going to be Spain, Germany, Japan, and then Mali. And you? Yeah,
exactly the same order. I think even if the Sabley sisters were there, I just got a feeling, Spain, it feels like things are lining up. the anger they must feel from last summer, the preparation they've had, like you said, not a huge number of WNBA players having to come back in and finding a way to work that out. Their preparation looks strong and looks well managed. They seem happy in camp. The bits that you're seeing on each of the players' personal socials, there doesn't seem to be that anxiety or anything like that. I think Spain will go top. Germany will go second. I think Japan will be third and Mali will be in final spot. But I think there'll be some great games. It looks realistically that game day one is the killer game in this group, right? Spain,
Right.
Germany, and Mali, Japan.
Mali, Japan, yeah.
That could be the ones that actually dictate the outcome of this group and where people kind of slot in, really. But we'll see. Okay, Shona, thank you so much. That wraps up episode 9, our review, and I'll look into Group A for the World Cup, which is coming up out tomorrow. We'll be back with episode 10, where we'll jump in and have a look at Group B in a little bit of detail and see what we think about those 4 teams.